Hey y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show.
While we are waiting for Facebook Live, I would like to welcome everybody to the Stoudemire, which is headquarters of the Eastside Community Network and home to the Stoudemire Wellness Hub, named in honor of our late friend, partner, and colleague, Marlo Stoudemire. Through this hub, we address 9 dimensions of wellness for our Eastside residents, offering classes in fitness, dance, yoga, arts, crafts, digital technology, games, and community events. We also provide a community room and health and resource coordination, working in partnership with Henry Ford Health Systems and Trinity Health, the Community Health Corps, and Wayne Metro Community Action Agency, to name a few, as well as our tenant here, All Wellbeing Services. These services are offered free of charge to all Eastside residents who are asked to make a pledge of either $20 per year or 20 hours of community service, and we provide transportation to and from the hub as needed, free. We also provide transportation to medical appointments for people on the east side of Detroit, and we provide low-cost transportation for shopping. And all of this is made possible through a number of grants, but I just wanted to highlight this check right behind us that our current 13th congressional representative made possible. It's a check for $1,887,725 in community project funding that came to this hub to support the residents of the east side of Detroit.
Wake up in here, let's wake up.
And that is part of this is only one of 10 projects worth $15,362,725 with our congressional representatives. We are looking for great legislation, we are looking for great advocacy, and we are looking for people to bring resources home to community in places like this to support residents who do not ordinarily have pathways to the kind of resources that we are working to provide. I also want to mention that there's an outreach office that our 13th Congressional District opened up here to provide community services. And so district services are important for people who are trying to access resources. As you consider, one of the people today will be our next representative. And we hope that this tradition of investing in neighborhoods like ours and investing in the people in neighborhoods like ours continues no matter who is representing the 13th. We've got lots of talented people here, and we can't wait to go live and ask you questions and find out exactly what your vision is for supporting the East Side. I'm going to pass the mic to my friend and colleague, Brandon Snyder, who is co-hosting this alongside with Eastside Community Network, Bridge Detroit, and Authentically Detroit.
All right, thank you, Donna, and it's a pleasure to be here at the Stoudemire on the East Side. So welcome, folks. What up, though? My name is Brandon Snyder. I am the co-executive director of Detroit Action. We are a grassroots, member-led, community-based organization building power for working class Black and brown folks here in Metro Detroit. I want to thank the Eastside Community Network and thank Authentically Detroit. Thank our staff that's in the building right now, and thanks to our members that's in the building right now. And I'm going to pass it over to my co-executive director, Jennifer Disler.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Disler. I'm the co-executive director of Detroit Action. Super excited to have conversations today with the candidates as we talk about how to strengthen our communities here in Detroit and especially in the 13th district. Thank you.
And while we're waiting, Eastside Community Network developed people's places and plans for sustainable development on Detroit's East Side. Sustainability is really important. We got a couple Eastside Community Network employees right here. Deborah Trotter, Richard Ackerman, and Davon Reader. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm slow with names. And as well as our Chief Operating Officer, Angela Brown-Wilson.
All right, guys, so today we are happy to bring you the long-awaited Economic Justice 13th Congressional Candidate Forum. This forum is brought to you once again in partnership with Detroit Action and Eastside Community Network. This forum is being live streamed on Facebook on the Authentically Detroit page, the Detroit Action page, Bridge Detroit, and the Eastside Community Network's Facebook page. The forum will be moderated by this esteemed panel of community advocates here. The audience is here, and we have promised to remain silent throughout the duration of today's forum, except for right now. Please help us welcome the candidates for the 13th congressional seat in the United States House of Representatives. John Conyers, Sherry Gay-Dgango, Michael Griffe, Adam Hollier, and Portia Roberson.
The parameters for today's forum are simple. Each candidate will have the opportunity to give 2-minute opening remarks uninterrupted. We will direct questions to candidates and they will have 90 seconds to respond. We will allow for 30-second rebuttals if a candidate makes a claim at another candidate if time permits. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for closing remarks uninterrupted. The candidates will answer a total of 12 questions each.
We have randomly pulled names to determine who gets to go first. And Adam, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Adam Hollier. I'm a state senator. I represent the 2nd Senate District, and I'm really excited for the opportunity to be here. I'm here because we know that gas and groceries are too expensive, and that gas and groceries are too expensive, guns are too cheap. And the reason that that's so important is because our dollars aren't going nearly far enough. We live in a world where it's increasingly expensive to have children, and it's hard to go to work because of all of those kind of things. As a state senator, I've been very effective at getting things done, getting a bill signed into law every year that I've served. I sit on the Appropriations Committee where I bring back more money to my district than all but a handful of members. $13 million in last year's budget and more than $100 million in this year's budget. I have a track record of getting things done, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to take that same level of advocacy to DC, where it's critically important that we recognize that working people are living in difficult spaces, that neighborhoods haven't had the kind of investment that we need, that we know that they deserve. And as somebody who's grown up in this district, the father of 2 little kids and the son of a firefighter and a social worker, I understand just how important social service is. I'm a captain in the Army, I'm a civil affairs officer and a paratrooper, I was a volunteer firefighter, and at every juncture in my life, I've done the hard things. As a matter of fact, being involved and starting much of my career working right here at the Lower East Side with Jefferson East, being involved with what used to be Warren Connor, and continuing to do those kind of things, being very involved in my community. So again, my name's Adam Hollier. I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk to you here today about where I think the 13th Congressional District should be going, but most importantly, about listening and seeing you in your doors. Thank you.
All right. Michael, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Orlando, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Griffe, candidate for Congress 13th District. I'm the son of a school social worker and a special education teacher. In fact, when you talk about the East Side, my mother, a school social worker, spent many years at Farwell, if you know the area. I didn't fall off anybody's political tree. I haven't been angling for a political job my whole career. And what I've been doing in my career started in the classroom as a high school English teacher. I followed in my dad's footsteps, who was a special education teacher in Detroit Public Schools for 42 years. And I followed in his footsteps not because he told me to, but because he led by example. And while I was a high school English teacher, started off in the Pontiac School District and went on to become a high school principal, I went to law school at night. And while I was in law school at night for 3.5 years, I would leave work at 5 o'clock, drive up, take a 40-minute drive, 4 nights a week, taking law class, passed the bar on the first try, and I became a civil rights lawyer working at one of the largest law firms in Michigan. And this is why I'm running. Because I believe more people like us, like me and you, that have actually had their feet on the ground doing the work in our community should represent us in Washington. That's why I'm running. I hope to earn your support. I look forward to engaging in this discussion to not only just describe who we are, but also our motivations, why we're in this, and also where we are on the issues. Because you're going to hear a lot of things that people say, and I'm going to make sure that every single word that comes out of my mouth is something that I've seen and something that I've done. Look forward to engaging in the discussion. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. John, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. My name is John Conyers. What's up, bro? I'm running for the United States Congress because I believe this district needs young, energetic leadership that understands how far we've come as a district, but also understands and has a vision for where we can be. I grew up in one of the strongest Democratic households that this country has. I've seen some of the best and the worst moments of not only this country, but this district as well as this party. Not only am I the son of John Conyers, I'm also the child of an incarcerated parent. 4 out of 10 kids in this district have a parent that has either gone to prison, has either gone to prison or that is in prison, which makes us 7 times more likely to go to prison. This district not only needs someone that understands how to get the job done there has the institutional knowledge of that body, but someone that can give an authentic voice and authentic representation to this community. And so I look forward to being here with you all today and talking through my ideas for the district. I hope to earn your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Sherry, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this conversation. I feel honored to be on this panel with very educated members that are all vying for this seat in the 13th Congressional District. We don't have a competency issue, we have a commitment issue. And so I'm running because I've demonstrated a commitment for more than 25 years to our community to address economic injustice, environmental injustice, educational injustice, auto insurance injustice, public school injustice, you name it. I've stood in the gap and fought and delivered. I'm not sending mail talking about what I'm going to do. I have a proven track record as a former science teacher with Detroit Public Schools. I went to the legislature to fight because I realized we were certainly still separate and unequal. And I fought against the takeover and the dismantling of our schools and fought to ensure we had a Detroit Public School Board because we're the largest district in the state of Michigan, yet they wanted to transform our school with an alleged bailout and then subject us to being the only district without a school board. I said, not on my watch. I'm running also because we are still redlined in the city of Detroit. We continue to see the impact auto insurance has had, but not just in Detroit, across our state. 18,000 residents who are in the Catastrophic Claims Association are in there because of one of our members on this panel who voted to pass Senate Bill number 1. I'm running to be a voice, a champion, a fighter for justice in our community. This is not, again, about competency. Most of the folks up here are very well competent, but have they shown that they have a proven commitment to social justice? I say I'm the only one on this panel that has demonstrated a fight, that have put my own family at risk, my own self-interest at risk to fight for social justice. That's why I'm running for Congress. It's a legacy seat, and it needs a fighter.
I want to remind the audience of the ground rules that we are to hold applause and cheering throughout the forum until the end of the forum. Thank you for agreement. Portia, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. I'm Portia Roberson. I'm running for Congress in the 13th District. I have been a lifelong resident of the new 13th District. I have been a public servant my entire career. I, too, am the daughter of a Detroit Public School social worker and the late Judge Dalton A. Roberson. I've been involved in criminal justice as a public defender. I am currently the CEO of Focus Hope, a racial and social justice advocacy organization that's 54 years old. And I had the great pleasure to be appointed by President Barack Obama to lead the Department of Governmental Affairs at the Justice Department under the first Black Attorney General, Eric Holder. I subsequently came back to a city that I love to run strong cities, strong communities. And I'm the only candidate in this race that has brought back already federal resources to this city, and I intend to do the same when I get to Congress to do that for this district. One of the things that I am most proud of is that in leading Focus Hope, an organization that has almost a $30 million budget and had almost $6 million in debt when I arrived 4 years ago, we are now out of debt. I think it is incredibly important that your next Congresswoman have fiscal responsibility as well, that she makes sure that she ensures that the money that is coming here is held accountable for the people who need it the most. And I have done that for the last 4 years at Focus Hope, ensuring that every dollar that we get is used on our programs and not for our pet projects. And so I am Portia Roberson. I hope I have your support and your vote.
All right, thank you. Portia, you go first in terms of the questions. And the first question is, how would you assess housing needs in the 13th Congressional District, and what strategies do you recommend to improve access to quality, affordable housing?
So affordable housing has become an issue that not only covers the city, but covers across this district. I've been to Lincoln Park and Southgate, Romulus, and even in the Points. People are talking about getting their piece of the American dream through having the opportunity to buy their own home. There was a time in this city where 85% of Detroiters could buy their own home. That is no longer an option for many of us. And land ownership and home ownership is a thing that creates generational wealth. So if you are looking as an African American at ways in which you can leave your family well set, it is because you can own a piece of property. One of the things we must do is that as we encourage development in the city, we need to truly have affordable housing, not just for single folks, but for families to be able to live in. And the most important thing we can do is have affordability assessed by the cities in this district and not just the entirety of the district. We have a social, economic, wide range of folks in this district. And to assess affordability by those who have the most against those who have the least is unacceptable. So we must assess affordability in reality, and we must make sure that people who are doing development in this city and so often are welcomed into this city are doing it for families who actually need to be able to buy and rent those properties.
All right, thank you. Sherry?
Thank you. We face one of the greatest home shortages in the country. And we all know that the assessments that have been done on those that own homes, a study demonstrated that those homeowners accrue wealth in approximately $250,000, whereas those who are renting, their wealth assessment is about $7,000 or less. And so, not just in the city of Detroit, but as was stated, but throughout our district, some of the more challenged districts, we have to increase home ownership. Home ownership has plummeted. But what I want to say is we have to make sure that we bring forward tax incentives for home ownership, and that's what I see as one of the issues. Also, we want to make sure that we address the flood issue and the flood concerns and make sure that we advance and strengthen the reserve that is available for residents throughout this very coastal district. But I want to challenge my colleague who is also running to not just talk about the role that she had with Obama, but talk about the role she had with Duggan and what she did with Duggan to make sure contractors were held accountable when we're dealing with development. Yes, we need affordable homes available to address the median range of many of those who are still remain in poverty, but you gotta be honest about your record of what you did, not what you anticipate or saying you're going to do when you go to Congress. What you did before is what you will continue to do, and that's not put the people first.
All right, Portia, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I'm actually very proud of the work I've done in every one of the jobs I've had. When I led CREO, we, for the first time in many, many years, tried to hold developers accountable, asking them to hire more Detroiters and assessing a fine when they did not hire Detroiters. Was it enough? I will say it will never be enough to make sure that we have true equity in this city. But in terms of going back to developers and saying, giving us a piece of the economic pie that you all are going to get when you have these development projects and making sure that Detroiters, who I know across the board deserve a seat at this table, I'm absolutely proud of that work, and I don't ever try to deny it.
Thank you,
All
Portia.
right, thank you. John?
Well, thank you for the question. I've been to all 19 cities of this district. I've talked to homeowners, and contrary to what has already been stated, there is not, and especially in Detroit, there is not a shortage of available homes. There's actually been a 30% in the past few years. There's been a 30% increase in vacancies in this district. Meanwhile, the cost of living has also increased by 30% at the same time, making the median cost of rent, I think, $1,100 if I'm not mistaken, while the median rent is $26,000. The problem with our affordable housing issue, and it's also what's getting lost in that, is that we're using affordable housing to gloss over everything that also includes low income. Affordable housing is an issue not because of simply the lack of affordability, but banking lending practices, right? And so this is where, when we talk about experience is not just about having been in office. Experience is also about being able to go to DC and having relationships. Me, someone who has done that, having built relationships with people like Marsha Fudge or Maxine Waters, we can examine how banks lend, because we know that if you own a home that is valued at $50K or less, you do not have access to a loan, which is how most people that have bought a home are able to maintain that home. So now we are if you own a home that is valued at $50K or less, which most homes in the city of Detroit are, you are in a cyclical process of, I own this home and it's now become a money pit and not an investment, because you're having to continue to come out of pocket. So what we need to do, and what we need, is someone that can go to DC, leverage their relationships, and hold banking practices, hold banks accountable for their practices, and work with the existing administration to get things done.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you for the question. I just want to chime in with a couple actual policy considerations. First, we should expand and make permanent new market tax credits and low-income housing tax credits. That's in the purview of your next representative in Congress. And I think that what can get lost in a lot of this discussion of what's important is, what are you going to do when you get there? And I'm going to be a champion that comes in as an original co-sponsor to make permanent and to extend new market tax credits and low-income housing credits. Also, we need to take a look at what Mr. Conyers just said. We need to take a look at our lending practices. And I think it also means that we need to be able to allow federal opportunities for micro-lending and expansion of CDFIs. You know, community development financial institutions lend to minorities and lend to Black folks more than traditional banks. And I think that we need to really take a look at that as far as enacting real policy to affect the real change that we need.
Thank you. Adam?
Affordable housing isn't a real thing. And we should stop talking about the affordable housing programs like they are for real and regular people. Affordable housing should say that you're spending 30% of your income on housing. Almost nobody is doing that. And when we talk about it, yes, we need to do everything we can to make sure that there is more access for people to buy a home. But we've got to be real and understand that there are a lot of people who are never going to be able to buy a home, because we have tons and tons of people who are homeless. And we aren't talking about how we address those issues. We have got to make sure that there is public housing in a way that is accessible and quality. Not the kind of thing that people feel ashamed of about living, but the same kind of programs that we have for the other social safety networks, right? We don't let people go to the grocery store with no ability to buy groceries. We say that there is a minimum benefit that we are going to make sure kids aren't hungry. We've got to make sure that the same thing is true about people when they are looking for housing. It's something that we can do and that we can address. We've just got to fund it. We've got to prioritize people and ensure that the development in our communities is happening by people like ECN, happening by folks like Jefferson East or Vanguard, the kind of folks that are going to engage in building the kind of housing for neighborhoods. We just have to ensure that those developers are local and that they have the tools to build affordable housing that a family can buy, can rent in, can stay in, because that is the difference between whether you are housed or not housed. It's something I'm very committed to do. I have a master's in urban planning. It's what I've spent my entire life trying to do, where I've worked from jump, and why I believe that it's so important for us to address housing in this country. Thank you.
Great. We're gonna start it in reverse order with Adam. So follow-up question to the one that just was previously raised. How would you use the powers of the federal government to protect tenants from eviction?
The first thing that we have to do is, in the development programs and the incentives that we put in the kind of clauses that are necessary to interject ourselves into these spaces. So the majority of housing that is built in this country has had some form of federal subsidy, whether that be in the loan or the development of that loan, and making sure that as we provide tenants with that space, that we are providing some skin in the game in this space. That's the only thing that we can do. We have got to have real resources and vouchers and programs that don't have us saying, well, don't put this person out, but are saying, here are the resources necessary to keep them in this space. We are going to provide that, because particularly in the city of Detroit, the majority of landlords are small folks, right? They're folks who have 5 or 6 apartments or rent out a house. They're trying to survive on that. That's their retirement income, those kind of things. They can't afford the kind of space necessary to give extra people other spaces unless there's a federal government. We provide them with the kind of dollars that they need to invest. It's something we can do with FHA lending. It's something that we can do with grants. It's something that we can do with the kind of HUD funds that we have not been doing in the past, but that we do with all kinds of other programs, particularly as we talk about large-scale developers.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Michael?
You talk about protecting tenants. I think a federal solution can actually be found what we've done at the local level. I believe that there's going to be a lot of fights in Congress, and a lot of those fights are going to be, when we talk about women's reproductive rights and some others, are going to be on the House Judiciary Committee. And as a civil rights lawyer, I intend to do everything that I can, if elected, to serve on that committee. I believe what we can look to locally is quite simple. Tenants in Detroit now have a mandated right to counsel in eviction proceedings. We need to be able to make that possible at a federal level, so that not just Detroit residents, but every resident of the state of Michigan and around the country have a federal right to counsel when facing eviction. We know that the stakes are the weight is imbalanced between landlords and tenants. So we need somebody to really come through with real solutions, not fluffy talk, but actual real solutions to fight. And that fight's going to be on the Judiciary Committee. I intend to be at the center of that as a civil rights attorney and using the skills that I've learned to be able to do so. Thank you.
John?
Thank you for the question. I just have points on it because most of the things that I champion have already been said. So one, federal right to counsel if you're facing in the eviction process. Beyond that, holding developers that receive federal funding, putting in stricter guidelines on when they can start the eviction process, extending how long that may be, and then also one thing that is indirect but I think matters a lot. There's an act called the Child Care for Working Families Act, right? And we know that when the data on that shows that it will put 7% of families' money back into their pocket. So giving families the opportunity to have more money in their pocket to put towards the cost of living would greatly increase or greatly decrease the evictions that we see in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry?
Thank you. The Free Press recently said I was very passionate. And I think the reason that I am is because I have firsthand experience. I'm the only candidate up here that doesn't come from a privileged background. My mother was a power sewing machine operator at Ford Motor Company. My father ultimately went to prison. And so I know what it's like to live in a nice big house on Burlingame and Dexter and then have to move because my mother had a back injury and we lost it. I know what it felt like to start my own home when I was 26, 27, bought it on a land contract, and then ultimately lost that. And so I'm passionate about this work, and I've been in the trenches fighting against this work. The banks got the biggest bailout than anybody after COVID, and they're the least one that deserve it. And so you need people that will fight back and make sure that we strengthen the Fair Housing Act to ensure that we address these shortfalls and provide these incentives for those to become homeowners that are renters. Also, making sure that we really put some teeth in the Community Reinvestment Act. Many of our banks, no one provides oversight. I served on banking for 3 terms, 2 terms as the vice chair. So I understand what banks get away with. I understand the foreclosure issue, and I've worked alongside with CDAT and other organizations.
Thank you. We got a rebuttal. I want to pass it over to Michael.
Yeah, as far as privileged background, I just wanted to make a reference to this. I'm very proud that my mother and my father are in the audience today. We talk about privileged background. Both of my parents worked 2 jobs in my entire life. I took a football scholarship to Wayne State for the very specific reason I didn't want to see my mother have to work that second job the way she did to put my sister through Alabama A&M University. When you talk about privileged background, I'm super proud of the hard work that my parents have shown me by example. And I think all the 2 jobs that I had was a direct result of them.
Thank you. And I think Portia is also looking to me, but you have 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Yes, 30 seconds.
To respond to
the is that what were you?
No, I was just waiting to answer
the question. Thank you. So we'll move on. We'll pass it over to Jennifer. And actually with you.
Portia has an answer.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is what separates me from the other candidates in this race. Having spent the last 4 years providing direct services to people, I am keenly aware of how many of our students who come to us for workforce training are bordering on homelessness or actually homeless. And so what we must do right now is ask the federal government to do a national moratorium on evictions similar to what we did at the height of the pandemic. We are facing an inflation crisis in this country, and people are having to make the choice about whether or not to buy groceries or buy gas, whether to be able to travel to a program to better their lives or whether they can afford to do that. So I am saying that right now, before we start talking about the legislation of the future, we need to start asking about things that can happen immediately to alleviate some of the concerns that the residents of the 13th District have.
Thank you. We got a rebuttal. Sherry, you got 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'm very thankful that I had an opportunity to work with Treasurer Eric Sabree to call for a moratorium. As a matter of fact, before Rep. Isaac Roberson passed, he was going to have a press conference, and we decided not to do a press conference on the issue. And I'm glad that we didn't, because he actually had COVID at that time, but he was still fighting. Also, Judge McConaughey as well, to make sure that we pull for a moratorium on foreclosure. So not what we're talking about, but what we've done in our record is what I'm here for.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will start with Portia. Over the past few decades, federal and state governments have sharply reduced grants and revenue sharing to U.S. cities, including Detroit, causing an increased reliance on corporate investments and bond financing. What is the role of the federal and state government in cities, and what would you do as a 13th Congressional District representative to support that role?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about my role already. Again, Leading Strong Cities, Strong Communities was about finding federal resources for projects that were not able to be afforded by the city at that time. This was in 2012, and as you know, we had a crisis in our city and we're soon going to declare bankruptcy. The fact of the matter is, even the bankruptcy was based upon the fact that the state stopped sharing revenue with cities. And had they been able to, or had they chosen to, continue to pay their bills, as most of us, or all of us, are required to do, we may not have been in the position of having to file bankruptcy. So I'm adamant about the federal government continuing to impress upon states in particular that they have to do revenue sharing with the city of Detroit. It's like I say all the time, if I stop paying my bills, my checkbook will look very flush. And so the reality of it is the state balanced their budget on the idea that they didn't have to give the city the money that they owed the city. And where it ended up landing the most, where it ended up hurting the most, is that the people of the city of Detroit and now the people of the 13th District saw a decrease in all of their services. I served as the first Black woman chair of the Police and Fire Pension Board, and I know how much pensions were cut for city workers because the city had declared bankruptcy. We must do more to impress upon the federal government that the states cannot unilaterally decide that they are not going to pay their bills to the city of Detroit or the 13th District.
Thank you. Chair.
Please hold your applause. Please hold your applause. Thank you.
Thanks, Orlando. Sherry, same question.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be endorsed by both the police and the firefighters for this very reason. But I've been on record since the inception of the bailout, the alleged bailout for bankruptcy, and speaking out, not just saying now because I'm running, but speaking out against the issue of revenue sharing. A lobbyist, Ken Cole, who spent a lot of time in the city of Detroit, we often sat down and talked about how ashamed it was that the state of Michigan continued to shortchange our city and many of our municipalities who are suffering. Hamtramck is also suffering. Romulus is also suffering. And so it's incumbent upon us to have a leader that have a demonstrated track record that has already fought to make sure that we get adequate funding and revenue sharing to our municipalities so that they can thrive and not depend on jails to fund their municipalities. So that's what I've done. That's what I will continue to do. And we must do that to continue to fight back. So I'm thankful to the firefighters and the Detroit police officers for supporting me to go and fight to make sure that we bring back their pensions.
Thank you. John?
Thank you for the question. When I get to DC, it is my desire to serve on the Appropriations Committee. One of the great things that has happened under the Biden administration is the reintroduction of earmarks. So while federal dollars are important, it's also important to have set-asides for particular programs within the district so that we can continue to build out our programs and not, to the point of the question, rely on private investment and grants. So that is my solution to that issue.
Thank you. Michael?
As far as revenue sharing is concerned, I do think, although that is in the purview of state government, there is a bully pulpit that the office does hold. And I think we do need to have a representative that is willing to stand up and to use that platform in order to push state government for change. And that includes even members of our own party to make sure that, that some folks in the suburbs have to pay their fair share of revenue sharing. I would also like to include, though, with the former state representative, I was also endorsed by the Detroit Police Officers Association. And I will surely be an intense fighter to protect the pensions that have been stripped away through Detroit's bankruptcy. But when we talk about Black business owners and Black people, Black business owners are not getting their fair share. The SBA is not, has a dismal record of even the programs, the paltry programs that are in place for Black businesses to receive funding at every single level, from angel to seed to growth to acceleration. These things are not provided, and we need to have a stronger oversight of the Small Business Association so that Black businesses that deserve to get the resources and the financing from SBA actually gets into their pockets.
Thank you. Adam?
Thanks. I sit on the Senate Appropriations Committee today, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done in this budget to increase revenue sharing to record levels. It's really important that you have folks who have had a track record of getting these things done. As we talk about the federal government, we had a Congresswoman in Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick who knew how to bring home the money, right? When you look out at the projects, you look out across this city and across the region, you saw things happen because she was in the space, because she had been able to make the kind of relationships that we're able to deliver. That's what I've been able to do at the state level, is what I'm very committed to doing at the national level. And it starts about building the kind of infrastructure programs that are going to be necessary. As we talk about bringing federal dollars in, it's talking about bringing federal dollars in to address the internet divide. It's talking about bringing federal dollars in to get rid of the lead pipes, to do the kind of things that we have not seen in large scale, but that we're starting to see with the Build Back Better initiative. A lot of those dollars I was able to push down to the local level as a member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, but we've got to be thinking about much bigger things as we talk about regional transit, as we talk about really developing housing in our communities and the kind of things that we develop and work with local partners like ECN or Warren Connor at the time, Jefferson East, Vanguard, talking to CDFIs in their space and saying, how do we direct dollars into the local space? Those are things that I've been able to do over the last 4 years. The things that I'm very committed to doing as your next member of Congress.
Thank you, Adam. All right, Adam, you have first dibs on the next question. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows inflation increasing over 9% compared to last year, largely caused by the increased cost of housing. I'm sorry.
Before a rebuttal, we raise our hand, right?
Sure,
Yes,
you have 30 seconds, Sherry.
Yes, I just want to point out, I don't know whether my former colleague has amnesia or forgot his record, but he supported shifting the cost of the lead pipe replacement in our city from the city to the residents, which creates another burden on those who are having challenges with their water bills. So we're talking about infrastructure and fixing the pipe problem. Let's not forget your record that you shifted the debt and the burden to the residents.
Adam, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I mean, there's no place where that's been the case. I've been a leading advocate for doing it. You've seen me request appropriations and get those things in the budget. So I encourage everybody to look through my record and to go through and talk about it.
All right, we have to move on to the next question. Adam, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows inflation increasing over 9% compared to last year, largely caused by the increased cost of housing, food, and gas. How is this impacting residents in the 13th Congressional District, and what should be done about it?
Well, the number one thing is, as we talk about it, the federal government has got to really step up and engage in this space. We have got to invest in housing in ways that we haven't. The kind of investments that you saw right after World War II to build housing, to make real grants directly to people to decrease the cost of it, particularly as we talk about to small landlords who are struggling to keep the doors open and keep these spaces moving. Those are things that you haven't seen happen. As we talk about gas prices, the largest country in the world has invaded the largest country in Europe. We are engaged in a moment where the world is at war. And I'm really grateful that President Biden has done everything he can to keep the U.S. out of this conflict, but that has been one of the biggest reasons that gas prices have gone up. We're optimistic that they will continue to go down, but in the interim, we have got to really invest in making food sources much cheaper by developing supply-side solutions and increasing domestic manufacturing, making it better and cheaper for farmers to be able to farm so that when you go to the grocery store, you can afford the groceries. That's what we've got to be doing. We should be doing it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Adam. Michael, same question.
My grandfather came here from Bessemer, Alabama to Ecorse, Michigan, December 1948 because my grandmother refused to raise her children in the Jim Crow South. He put 30 years in McLeod Steel. And I tell you, he's been gone on to glory for about 12 years. He would roll over in his grave if he knew that McLeod Steel was closed, U.S. Steel is at 20% capacity, and we're importing $600 million a year of steel from China. The one thing we need to do is start providing our own stuff right here at home. Let's start there. And I have the courage to actually make that statement because, you know what? I don't owe anybody anything. I've been serving our children over the last 20 years and fighting for our civil rights in federal courts around the country. The second thing we need to do is modernize our ports. You know, there's a supply chain issue that really has created a lot of the issues of the actual things that we rely on to actually get into our front porches. That includes our medicine, that includes the very necessities that we need in order to survive. We need to be able to make our things at home, put people to work in the process, And we also need to modernize a very aging port system and infrastructure that has really laid bare the issues that we have as far as costs going up.
Thank you. John, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please, just so I make sure?
Yes, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows inflation increasing over 9% compared to last year, largely caused by the increased cost of housing, food, and gas. How is this impacting residents in the 13th Congressional District, and what should be done about it?
Thank you for the question. Well, it's impacting residents tremendously. I'm very much aware of that, having walked all 19 cities of this district. And again, I want to echo the sentiment that the average income in this district is $26,000 after a tax, while the median rent price is $1,100. So affordability is a tremendous issue. We need to pass. We need to go to DC and pass. Whoever wins this seat needs to go to DC and pass legislation that is similar to Build Back Better to put our people to work. Right, that's first and foremost. We have a crumbling infrastructure. One of the ways that we can really provide help in this district is being able to put people to work and build out a greener economy. Right, that's number one. Number two. We also need to raise the federal minimum wage. When I ran in 2018, I said $15 an hour as federal minimum wage wasn't enough. It's 2020, we still don't have $15 an hour minimum wage. It needs to be 20. So that's something that I would support. And so those are the solutions that I have, and I would like to go to DC and fight for.
Thank you, John. Sherry, same question.
Thank you. First of all, let's get past $15. We need a fair working wage that we tie to the rate of inflation. We also have to address the shortfalls that we have with respect to many of our retirees, unfortunately, police and firefighters alike, that won't have adequate health insurance. We need to make sure that we have paid family leave and address that as well. But home ownership, making home ownership and higher education or skilled trades attainable. Just celebrating the Build Back Better $15 billion infrastructure without realizing how much we have access to is a shame. 6% in the state of Michigan of Black contractors, 17% in the city of Detroit of Black contractors. And so this is the same problem I've seen in Romulus and Hamtramck for minorities having an opportunity. Your former boss, Mayor Duggan, who continue to talk about an opportunity gap, yet on this opportunity gap, no provisions have been made. I passed a resolution in the Civil Rights Committee to call for more women, especially minority women, to have access to these opportunities, but none of these candidates up here have actually took to the fight on the field and made sure they fought for access to these opportunities, but me.
Please hold your applause. Portia, you have 2 minutes to respond to the question and to rebut.
Thank you. So first and foremost, let me respond to the question. The first thing that the federal government can do is make corporations pay their fair share. We see corporations still making extreme profits in a time when people are trying to decide between a pound of bacon and a gallon of gas. So the first thing that the federal government needs to do is make sure that we are not paying excessive amounts for everything that we need while people decide about their next boondoggle to the moon. The reality of it is that the federal government needs to make sure that corporations pay their fair share. As far as my opponent indicating that I work for Mayor Duggan, let me be very clear. I worked for Mayor Duggan 3 times. I worked as an assistant Wayne County prosecutor. I worked at the Detroit Medical Center for him, working with federally qualified health clinics for uninsured and underinsured, and I worked at Creo. Again, I am proud of the work that I did. It wasn't because of Mayor Duggan, it's the work that I chose to do because I know I can help people in those roles. I'm not gonna sit here and try and deny work for him, and I don't think it's a personal attack when she says I work for him, because I did, and I did the best that I could to make sure that the people of the city of Detroit in any of those capacities were well represented by me.
All right, thank you, Portia. Sherry, we have to move on to the next question.
All right.
Okay, well,
All right. No, that's a.
I'm not trying to go back and forth, and I don't want it to come across as an attack. And I celebrate having somebody with competency at the table. So it's not an attack. It's did you call out injustice when you had those roles?
Right, okay.
Continuously and completely, since I worked at, when I was calling out injustices when we demolished Recorder's Court and made it part of the Wayne County Circuit Court when I was a public defender, because I knew what it would result in, a criminal justice system that became more unfair to Black and brown people. So I've been calling out injustices for my entire career, including right now as my time as the chair of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission.
And I am going to take back control of this forum right now. Okay? So we're going to ask the candidates to please respect the ground rules. We have to move on to the next question. Don.
All right. The federal minimum wage is currently $7.25 an hour. In Michigan, the minimum wage is $9.87 an hour. Do you think that these minimum wages are sufficient, and will raising them contribute to more inflation? Why or why not? Portia, you go first.
Well, thank you very much. This is a really appropriate question for me. As I mentioned before, I've spent the last 4 years as the CEO of Focus Hope. An organization has almost a $30 million budget and almost 200 employees. I'm very proud to say that we are out of debt for the first time in 16 years. And one of the first things I did when we got out of debt is shared our stability with the people who've been toiling away at Focus Hope, serving our residents for the last 50 years. And so I have raised the minimum wage at Focus Hope to $15 an hour for all of our current employees and hopefully for all of our future employees. I did that because it's unfair to say that we are out of debt if we're not going to share the wealth with the people who deserve it the most. And those are the people who've been working very hard at Focus Hope. I didn't wait for the federal government to tell me to do that. I didn't wait for anyone else to tell me to do that. I did that because it's right and it's fair. And do I think that it's enough? Absolutely not. The inflation that we are seeing right now mandates the minimum wage be at least $25 an hour. And as soon as I can increase the revenue that we have at Focus Hope, I will continue to raise the minimum wage at Focus Hope.
Thank you, Portia. Sherry?
Thank you. So, of course, I just spoke to that answer in my previous answer, that we need to increase the minimum wage, and it's something that I've already advocated for. I mean, it's abysmal to see what the rates are now, and we need to tie it to inflation. But I have to say that we're not sending Focus Hope to Congress. We're sending a competent, fighting, committed member to Congress that has demonstrated a willingness to fight for those who are struggling. If you look within 1 mile perimeter of Focus Hope, we know that we still have a lot of work to do. And I am proud that I helped to secure the funding for Focus Hope as a member of the legislature. That's what we do in the legislature. We get appropriations, we vote on them, and we send the money to the communities. So yes, we help to get Focus Hope out of debt.
And as we move forward, can you please respond to all of the questions? Because I did ask a second part of the question, and that is whether or not raising the minimum wage will contribute to inflation. So we're going to move on. John, can you try to respond to the full question?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Okay. The federal minimum wage is currently $7.25 an hour. In Michigan, the minimum wage is $87 an hour, $9.87 an hour. Do you think that these minimum wages are sufficient, and will raising these wages contribute to inflation? Why or why not?
So no, I don't think raising, or thank you for the question first and foremost, but no, I do not think that raising the current levels will contribute to inflation, or raising them for that matter. Part of what we're seeing with inflation has to do with our monetary policy that emanates from the Federal Reserve. And it also has to do with our employment levels, right? So I do not envy the job of Chairman Powell or Secretary Yellen. Those are as it relates to inflation, that's something that is much more controlled by the Federal Reserve. As it relates to what we can do from our position, or the position we seek to control inflation, or to help our constituents with address inflation, it's about bringing federal dollars back here and having investment in the community, and figuring out how to put people to work, whether that's investment in skilled trade, whether that's rebuilding our infrastructure. Those are the kind of things that we can do, or passing legislation to raise the federal minimum wage. Those are the type of things that we can do to address inflation for our constituents. But as it relates to direct impact, that emanates from the Federal Reserve, Chairman Powell and Secretary Yellen. And again, I do not envy their position, because we are a globally interconnected society, and that is part of why we're seeing the inflationary levels that we're seeing.
All right. Michael.
Yes, I'm in favor of raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. I do not believe that it will increase inflation, but I do believe that it's quite possible that some costs will get deferred and transferred to consumers and many low-income consumers. One thing I think that gets lost, though, is the race wealth disparity and income disparity. Black men make 69 cents on the dollar to their white counterparts. Black women make 61 cents to the dollar for their counterparts. We need to be able to use a federal solution to fix that. We need to punish corporations that disproportionately pay white employees more than black employees. And secondly, we also need to talk about skills training. I think we need to go beyond saying K-12 at this stage. Folks on the east side kids on the east side of Detroit are no longer competing against kids on the west side of Detroit. They're competing against kids in Shanghai and kids in Tokyo. They're on a global marketplace, and we need to start saying pre-K through 14, which includes 2 years of post-secondary advancement, whether that be guaranteed community college, a union-based apprenticeship program, or other specialized training such as coding and performing high-skilled jobs. When kids come out of high school, we can't no longer say, just figure it out. Go to college or figure it out. We need to train them so that we're not talking about just raising minimum wage, but talking about providing livable wage and a pathway to opportunity.
Time. Adam, you have the last word.
Oh, cool. The minimum wage is wildly inadequate. When we talk about the 5 for 15, it started here in Detroit more than a decade ago. It was barely making it more than a decade ago. It's nowhere near making it today. We should stop talking about what the minimum wage is. We should start talking about the Alice rate. We should start talking about what it actually costs to live safely with dignity in a community. That's what I'll be fighting for all day. And that's not what we have spent enough time talking about. It's not what we have invested in. It's not what we have built our social safety net around. And yes, it will increase inflation until we make the wealthiest of people pay their fair share of taxes, right? These are the kind of things that make a difference. People who are at the bottom end of the spectrum are going to spend every dime that they have because they owe more than they're bringing in every day, every week. And so if we don't build more housing that people at the lower end of the spectrum can afford, they're going to pay more because they're going to have a little bit more in their pocket. So we have got to make sure that our solutions from top to bottom allow people to spend their dollars effectively and wisely in a space that makes sense. Otherwise, we're still spinning our wheels, because what we should be most concerned about is whether or not people have a roof over their head, whether or not they can afford the food in their mouths, and just to manage those things, not whether or not it's going to raise inflation 1 point or 2 points. Inflation may go up a little bit, but we should be most focused on the people who have been negatively impacted by being left behind. And that's what I'm committed to doing.
All right, thank you. We're gonna start again with Adam. And so the question is, University of Michigan study estimates that there are over 38,000 homes in Detroit that are in dangerously poor conditions. Right now, there are plans underway to make repairs to fewer than 10% of those homes. Does the federal government have a responsibility to accelerate home repair for low to moderate income households? If so, what does that look like? If not, why not?
Yes, the federal government has a responsibility to do billions of dollars. We've seen incredible investments in demolition. We have not seen those same kind of investments in building up the housing stock. In the city of Detroit, we should be talking about restoring and saving housing, not just building new housing, right? Like there are a lot of houses that would have to be demolished and then rebuilt when we should save the much higher quality products that we have and the character in these spaces. It's something I've done personally in my neighborhood with the home I live in. My house has been vacant for 4 years, no doorknobs, no light fixtures, no copper pipe. You all know what that story is like. You know that ugly house on your neighborhood. You wish somebody would move in and buy it. The reality is we haven't taught folks the skills necessary to be able to renovate. There was a time where every kid who grew up in this city had wood shop and metal shop and learned the skills necessary to fix those kind of things, that they were in the neighborhood. That's the solution that we have to do. We have to invest in the job training, in the skill building to ensure that not only can people have the resources to fix from a material standpoint, but that they have the skills to correct the challenges in their homes and to make it extremely viable. We have too many seniors in our community that have a roof leak in them, right? We have too many seniors in these spaces that can't afford to fix them, and nobody has the skills necessary to do it that's willing to do the work. Because if you get anywhere high in the city outside downtown, you will see a sea of blue. And that's not because it's water, it's because people have tarps on their roofs. We have got to invest from a real and sustained national standpoint in saying we are going to rebuild the housing infrastructure in this city. And we can do that by spending the money.
Thank you, that's fine. Michael.
Yeah, this is an appropriations question. You know, if Build Back Better was passed, there would have been a historical investment into the state of Michigan's affordable housing programs, and that would flow through MISHDA. And what we saw was there's a couple senators that made it dead on arrival. We have to do more than talk, right? And I think what it really takes is getting into a room, making a deal, making something happen. And what that means, this is going to have to be standalone legislation. Affordable housing and housing repairs is a function of federal appropriations that's divided amongst the states. Former state representative gave us a very eloquent version of Schoolhouse Rock on how appropriations take place in the federal government. But all seriousness though, if we're going to be able to do that, it has to be done on the ground. It can't be done just through conjecture. Yeah, we have to get affordable housing. No, This is an appropriations issue that's going to be done in Congress. And if elected to Congress, I promise to be on the front lines fighting, because that's what I've been doing in the real world as a civil rights lawyer, as a teacher, and as a principal. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure. So a University of Michigan study estimates that there are over 38,000 homes in Detroit that are in dangerously poor conditions. Right now, there are plans underway to make repairs to fewer than 10% of those homes. Does the federal government have a responsibility to accelerate home repair for low to moderate income households? If so, what does that look like? If not, why not?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for the question. And yes, the federal government has responsibility. As I said earlier, part of the issue is banking, the lending practices of banks, right? They don't lend to homes that are valued at $50K or less. The average home price in this district, and specifically the city of Detroit, is $67,000. So I'm sure everyone in this room can imagine where that leaves most people that own a home in this district. If your roof is leaking, you cannot go to the bank like most folks that own a home over 100K and say, own a home that's valued at over 100K and get a home equity line of credit or get a home equity loan that enables you to repair a home based on the equity you've already put into that home. Detroiters and citizens of this district are having to go into their pocket to repair a home that they've already paid for. It shouldn't happen. So again, when we talk about getting a deal done, I've been in the rooms when deals get done. I know how their body works, 1,000%. And so the short answer is yes, the federal government has a role and responsibility, and I seek to hold banks accountable for how they're lending and make micro lending available to people that live in this district.
Thank you. Sherry?
Thank you. Before I say what I'm about to say, I want to make myself clear, because I know sometimes when you say things, people think you walk away and think you have a personal issue with someone. I don't. I don't have a personal issue with the mayor per se. I have a personal issue with many of his policies and the folks that have remained silent while working for him on these policies. The NOF block grant. I worked for Alberta Tinsley Talabi, council member Alberta Tinsley Talabi, in my 20s. And during the NOF block grant process, I worked on that. I worked over that, and I knew that those were grant dollars. When the mayor came in, he turned those into a loan. And so people didn't speak out against that. The hardest hit fund, the dollars that were misappropriated, nobody up here except for me has spoke out against that. The $250 million bond that was passed for demolition in the city of Detroit, I took to the mic, Joanne Watson took to the mic, many community leaders. None of these people up here stepped to the mic to push back against that $250 million bond. And then you gotta look at the people like Adamo who are getting $25,000, $30,000 to tear down a house, but some mystery person tore down a community house of mine for nothing. That doesn't make sense. So we gotta really call these things out. I'm not mad at the mayor. He offered me a job the day that Congresswoman Lawrence announced her retirement. I told him I would be looking to run for Congress if a seat came available. The seat came available. I thanked him for the meeting. I didn't need a job because I already have one, and I'm running for Congress.
All right, that's time. Portia.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So, University of Michigan study. So, thanks, audience. So, the University of Michigan study estimates that there are over 38,000 homes in Detroit that are in dangerously poor condition.
Thank you. I got it from
okay.
here. I got off track for a moment. Listen, the first thing that the federal government can do is hold people accountable for the money that they're sending from DC. We have more money coming into this district than we've ever had before through the infrastructure bill, through COVID relief dollars, through ARPA dollars. And one thing that we don't have is that we don't have a situation where we can make sure that the dollars that are allocated from the federal government are used according to what they were supposed to be allocated for and not used for people's pet projects. As the leader of a nonprofit, and yes, you are not electing that nonprofit leader to Congress, you're electing the leader who has gotten us out of debt and who is accountable for every dollar that comes through my building. I want to make sure that we are holding the same accountable for local and state leaders who use the dollars that are coming from the federal government to meet the needs of the people who need it the most. And so, yes, I do think we have to do something at the federal level to make sure that people are able to, in fact, improve their homes that they purchase, homes that traditionally they could work as a part of a grant to improve and now have to do it as a part of a loan. I think we must ensure that the dollars that are coming here are used in the way that they were supposed to be appropriated.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question will start with Portia.
Sure.
How will you work to address climate change if you're elected to Congress? What is your plan to support unionized workers displaced by the shift to renewable energy? How can we ensure that the new green jobs will be well paid and come with benefits and are created in the most economically distressed areas and communities of color, providing training and opportunities for a new generation of workers?
So I believe that the United States should be leading the world on climate change. We've seen so many instances. Right here in Detroit, we see massive flooding. We've seen it. My parents lived through Hurricane Katrina in Mississippi. We've seen it in the Northeast with Hurricane Sandy, Texas with a grid problem. All across this country, we're seeing climate change, and we're seeing the effects it has. So first of all, we have to stop this idea that it's deniable, that people can say that there is no such thing as climate change, because we see it every day. The reality of it is that one of the things that I'm opposed to is continuing things like Line 5, which would in fact impact the water should there be a catastrophe. We have about 90% of fresh water throughout the country resides right here within the confines of the state of Michigan. And we need to make sure that that water is safe and secure. And so one of the things I think you can do as you are taking away some of those opportunities that might be taken away by the big three, for instance, is making sure that there are workforce development programs that allow for brown and black folks to get involved in, that will talk about and be a part of these new jobs. We need to make sure that we are creating programs where people can learn how to do energy jobs and battery jobs and the new mechanics that are happening in auto dealerships. They don't look like they used to. You don't toil under the hood of a car anymore. And we have to make sure we have a place in those programs so that we have those jobs, and develop a program that leads to apprenticeships that then leads to unionizing. And that's one of the things that we've done already where I work.
Thank you. Sherry, same question.
Thank you. First of all, acknowledging the fact that environmental racism is real. The NAACP study on environmental racism indicates that 75% of African Americans live in fence-line communities. Making sure that we fight back. And I am so proud, very proud of 100% environmental justice record in the legislature. Standing and fighting back to make sure that we have clean energy. When I leave here today, I'm going to be with a few folks that will continue to fight for clean access to water. And so we got to strengthen EPA. How many of you have actually had an opportunity to meet somebody with EPA, to attend a community meeting with EPA? And so as a state legislator, I continue to hold coffee hours, town halls, bringing people together from agencies so that residents can hold them accountable. These are government jobs, and many of them hide, and you never ever see them. So I'll continue my record as a 100% environmental justice legislator and representative in the House of Representatives.
Thank you. John?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How will you work to address climate change if you're elected to Congress? What is your plan to support unionized workers displaced by the shift to renewable energy? How can we ensure that the new green jobs will be well paid and come with benefits and are created in the most economically distressed areas and communities of color, and provide training and opportunities for a new generation of workers?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, first and foremost, we have two massive polluters in this district right now. I have visited with the community block club on Benetal to talk to them about the Stellantis plant. There are members of this community, of that community in the room right now that can attest to that. And then we also have Marathon Oil down in Southwest, and so, or Marathon Petroleum down in Southwest. So we need to rein in how much they're polluting, because they are over-polluting consistently, constantly, and it utterly needs to stop. We need to strengthen the EPA. We need to shut down Line 5. That's something that should not be happening. We have 21% of the world's fresh water. We cannot afford to pollute that water and to put our communities across the state at risk, period. Were I to go to DC, I would support the Environmental Justice Mapping Act and Data Act that looks at the effects that we know, that we already know happen across the country within Black and brown communities that are first and foremost impacted by climate and environmental justice.
Thank you. Michael?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How will you work to address climate change if you're elected to Congress? What is your plan to support unionized workers displaced by the shift of renewable energy? And how can we ensure that new green jobs will be well paid and come with benefits and are created in the most economically distressed areas and communities of color, and provide training and opportunities for a new generation of workers?
Thank you. First, I'll say that I'm in full support of the energy provisions that were in Build Back Better. I do believe that that needs to be a standalone bill because it's important to get all stakeholders involved in order to make that bill a reality into law. You know, I'm a full believer in the carrot approach more than the stick as far as improving the environmental standards in this country. Because when you use the stick approach, for instance, carbon taxes on carbon, that stuff is pushed down to poor people. And you know, when I look at folks, there's a lot of folks that care very deeply about our planet, but they're also looking at gas being $5 a gallon. And I think what we need to do is incentivize companies like the companies here at home to get to carbon neutral by 2050, but also to be able to incentivize them for bringing those green jobs right here. Very earlier in our discussion, I talked about reimagining public education, providing 2 years of guaranteed post-secondary advancement. You know, a union-based apprenticeship program, the type of things that are going to be learned in this new era of electric vehicleization is going to be a skill that high school students coming out of high school will be able to benefit from in the future. You know, lastly, before the time goes up. Oh, okay.
Thank you. Adam?
First, any solution to climate change has to be hyper-localized. We know that Black and brown communities, particularly as we talk about the neighborhood that we're sitting in, are much more negatively impacted by climate change. We've got to plant more trees in these spaces. We've got to plant more small trees, which do a better job of bringing in carbon. We've got to change the kind of industry that we have in our spaces so that the kind of energy being produced, the kind of businesses that exist in our space are producing less carbon, that we're dealing with carbon tax credits and captures. Even more than that, this is Michigan, this is Detroit, this is the auto capital of the world. We have to make sure that every electric vehicle is produced here, that all the technology around electric vehicles is produced here, particularly with the batteries. And so I'm really excited and grateful to have been able to work really hard to ensure that we maintain some of that battery technology. And then the question becomes, how do you make sure that those jobs are our jobs? That's an easy answer. It's make sure that they're union jobs. We know that there is the least disparity between Black and brown in union jobs. So a good paying union job is the best way to ensure that all of these jobs are here. That's why most people are here. I know my family moved up from Oklahoma because my grandfather or my great uncle had a good union paying job working at Ford. That's the kind of story we want everybody to be able to say, that they have a good union paying job making batteries, making wind turbines, or doing whatever else is going to be a part of that new space. And there are lots of things that are going to be a part of it. We've got to have those innovations here as well with STEM and STEAM education so that the solutions are being created here, so that the products are being built here.
All right, thank you, Adam.
You,
Sherry, he didn't specifically call you out.
So this is
Sherry, he did not specifically go after you. There is no time for a rebuttal in this instance.
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I tried to raise my hand before,
Right,
and I
but
didn't get acknowledged.
we need to, we're behind schedule.
So we have to keep it moving. All right.
You have a
So
process,
Adam,
you follow a process.
yes. Adam, the United States, land of the free, imprisons more people, and especially Black Americans, than any place in the world. Despite several reforms at the state and federal level, the rate of decline in prison populations is estimated to be somewhere in the 1% a year. Question, what more should be done to reduce the prison population, and how would you go about revisiting the policies of the 1994 crime bill, and what should be done to restore full citizenship rights to returning citizens?
First thing we need to do to address is we have to decrease the supply. So we have to make sure that it is a much more equitable process when you are adjudicated. We know that when there is a Black man on a jury, the likelihood of being convicted as a Black man goes down by almost 70%. So I've worked on jury trial reform. Those are the first space. We saw a huge difference in our prison population during COVID, a lot of which was because we did not have the same kind of jury trials where we know there is incredible bias in these spaces. We have got to decrease the likelihood that a Black man, that a young Black woman, that any of these Black folks are involved in the system, which means that they have access to a good paying job, that they have access to space, that they are being educated in a way that they have not been. The 1994 crime bill was terrible. We all know there's no back and forth on that. But we've got to go back and address the folks who have spent 20 or 30 years in prison because they were selling a small amount of marijuana or some other piece. We have got to fix those kind of things. In Michigan, I've been a leader in helping to address some of those kind of things as a member of the Corrections Appropriations budget, where we have decreased the number of folks who are in our prison. We got a lot of folks out of prison during COVID because we recognized that it wasn't safe. There were still a lot of detractors that were like, well, they're going to go out and be repeat offenders or do some of those kind of things. Those things did not happen. We know that the best way to to keep somebody out of prison is to give them real options that are better than committing crimes. We should be all in for doing that.
Thank you, Adam. Michael.
Let me begin by saying this. Black men in particular, we are over-policed, we're over-prosecuted, and we're over-sentenced. And I think one of the things we need to be able to do in order to reverse all three of those trends is to, one, provide more discretion in our judicial system, provide more training in our policing system. I'm super proud of my wife, who served on the Detroit Board of Police Commissioners that actually spearheaded Detroit Police Department's 8 Can't Wait program, which it eliminated shooting into moving vehicles, eliminated chokeholds. And those are the kinds of things that were done in partnership with the Detroit Police Officers Association, who, along with one other candidate, has proudly endorsed, 2 other candidates. That was one you got. So as far as we talk about reform, we need to really look at this as a holistic approach. If we are able to do that, I say, look at what people have done, not what they've said. I'm a civil rights attorney. I've got a Fair Housing Act case in the Western District of Michigan. I've got a sex discrimination case in the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm a fighter. And I'm going to fight to reverse the trends of black men being over-policed, over-prosecuted, and over-sentenced, because that's what I've done during my career. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John, your question.
Well, thank you for the question. And all these solutions are wonderful. I haven't heard much that I disagree with, but I think one of the things that is missing that needs to continue to be talked about and fought for is reparations. And reparations isn't just the slavery issue. We can look at, we know what the 1994 crime bill did to our families, a lot of families in this community. My family is one of those families on my mother's side. Reparations, we can look at that from an immediate recent history standpoint and look at marijuana, nonviolent marijuana sentencing. We know that now marijuana is legal in a good number of states, and so we can prioritize giving young men, or now middle-aged men, that went to prison unjustly. We can prioritize giving them licenses and giving them, we know that everybody wasn't a low-level drug dealer. Some of them were enterprising men that built up great businesses, although it may have been illegal at the time. But why can't we prioritize bringing them home, because what they did is now legal, and giving them licenses to participate in that business that we know that has now been taken over by their white counterparts. So when I look at the problem, I look at it through a reparations lens, and I see that's how I seek to address it.
Thank you, John. Sherry, your question.
Thank you. Although I'm not an attorney, I'm proud to have been awarded the Legal Aid and Defenders Association award last year for my work in criminal justice reform. As a legislator, we pushed forward for one of my first bills, I would say my first term, to remove the mandatory sentencing guidelines, like Auntie Maxine, with gun possession. It certainly is something that is disproportionately impacting African-American communities, Black and Brown and Latino communities. Police accountability package that we put forward as a Detroit caucus chair, yet the Democrats wouldn't take it up and not even really fully acknowledge the impact on George Floyd. And so sometimes you got to be willing to call Democrats and hold them accountable. Our governor holding her accountable and asking her to do an advanced compassionate release during the COVID impact. Good time legislation is on the ballot, something I think that is very important. But my colleague at the end over here supported the closure of Ryan Prison. I used to participate in prison ministry at my church. Ryan Prison, also a prison up north, Huron Valley for women. And so I'm committed to this issue, and my track record demonstrates a commitment to this issue, but closing that prison and sending our residents into Upper Michigan, where residents can't visit their families, is wrong. So own your record of what you've done in criminal justice reform, closing Ryan Prison.
Adam, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I'm really proud that we're closing prisons. I was out front talking about it. We did not have any significant number of Detroiters at Ryan Prison. When they built it, that was the promise, but that was not the reality. I'm working extremely hard to make sure that on the site of Ryan Prison that we build the first veterans home in the city of Detroit. It's going to be a 120-bed unit, and make sure that people who have served honorably have a space in their community where you can go out and visit in connection with partnerships at Pershing High School and the National Guard space there. We should have less prisons.
Portia, your response to the question.
Thank you so much. I am an attorney, and I started my career as a public defender, defending people in what was then known as Recorder's Court. And many of you might recall that the destruction or destroying of Recorder's Court came as a direct result of a Republican governor not liking the verdict in the Butts and Nevers case. It was the first case where police officers were held accountable for killing a Black man. And I fought tirelessly, along with many others, including Councilwoman Joanne Watson, to make sure that that court stayed, and we were unsuccessful. We knew what would happen, that there would be less representation on juries, and there would be less representation on the bench, and that has certainly played out that way. We have to stop the privatization of prisons. We have to stop the incentivizing to incarcerate Black and brown people. I was really proud to work with Eric Holder when we got rid of the mandatory sentencings around crack cocaine versus powder cocaine, because as you know, crack cocaine carried a lot lengthier sentence than powder cocaine, even for less amount of that drug. And so these are the inequities that we find in the criminal justice system that we must address. We already see the current school to prison pipeline that we must dismantle. They are trying to incarcerate or plan a way to make sure that they incarcerate our children even at the earliest of their educational career. So we have to address these issues and continue to address them. The Vice President said that the 1994 crime bill was horrible to our communities. It continues to have a holistic effect on our communities that we have to address continuously.
Thank you, Portia. Donna, your question.
All right, Portia again. Shelters across the U.S. are reporting a surge in people looking for help, with wait lists doubling or tripling in recent months. At the same time, U.S. cities are cracking down on homeless encampments and criminalizing those who are houseless. While we build the supply of housing available to those without homes, what should we do to address this present crisis?
I think immediately we have to start talking about why people are homeless, the economic issues that drive them to homelessness, but also a lot of the mental health crisis that happens in this country that drives people into homeless situations. One of the things that we need to address is the fact that so many of our mental health facilities have been closed. One of the things that has happened is because we criminalize it, we lock people up. I saw that time and time again as a criminal defense lawyer, that we would incarcerate people rather than addressing the mental health crisis that they were in. The other piece is, again, addressing the development of affordable housing in places where people can live as they get on their feet. One of the organizations that's doing this so well is Neighborhood Services Organization, having a place where people can come and live while they are figuring out their way back to home ownership or rentals, or finding employment.
Okay, Sherry?
Thank you. I work for Teen Wellness Center, where we bring and address those who are suffering and impacted by mental health issues, and even transforming our center at night to a homeless shelter. But that's not enough. We have enough homeless shelters around our metropolis, but that's not the answer. Addressing mental health, not just starting with our veterans, many of which who are out walking for me right now, but addressing it early, addressing it in our K-12 system. That's why, as a school board member, I've advocated for more mental health services and support, especially as a result of COVID. Also, federal programs for our police departments. If you've been watching the news, you know that out in the city of Ecorse, River Rouge as well, many of them, even Eastern, which is not a part of the district, but they are struggling downriver with maintaining a police force. We have to have more investment, federal dollars, and investment in our police department to work alongside mental health agencies like Chief White is doing with our company, Teen Wellness Center. I'm very proud of that work. But the last thing I'll say is many people forget that our children are foster care. Many of them age out of the system. And that is the work that I lead as Director of Educational Outreach with Teen Wellness Center. Our foster care youth, I'm working with Park West as well, to address the fact that once they age out of the system, they have absolutely nowhere to go. I'm proud that I was able to help them get the CHAVI funding appropriated through the legislature, calling our House members, our Senate members, to making sure that our children have somewhere to go.
Thank you, Sherry.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, I'm sorry. Shelters across the U.S. are reporting a surge in people looking for help, with wait lists doubling or tripling in recent months. At the same time, U.S. cities are cracking down on homeless encampments and criminalizing those who are without homes. While we build the supply of housing available to those without homes, what should we do to address this crisis?
Well, thank you for the question. As we've talked about ad nauseum on this panel, we have an affordable housing crisis in not only this country, but in this district. We also have a jobs problem in this district, jobs that pay livable wages. When I ran for office in 2018, we had 4 public mental health facilities, and now we're down to 3. We need to increase funding for mental health, and we need to work, and I seek to work with Secretary Marsha Fudge to create not only rent vouchers, but eviction programs and resources for people to extend the eviction process, so that we don't have people out in the streets when they are faced with housing challenges.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
You know, in my opening remarks, I said everything that comes out of my mouth is something that I've seen and done in the real world. I was a high school principal, and several times I had students that qualified under the McKinney-Vento, which is the legal definition of a child that's homeless. And we had to provide wraparound services for those children. That included not only just providing them with extra resources, but also providing them with the mental health resources, with school social work, other licensed therapists. We need to be able to do that at a federal level in Washington. And what that means is we need to be able to codify wraparound services to eliminate the actual root cause of homelessness. We talk about mental health, but we also have to talk about the actual functioning of substance abuse, which is a big cause of homelessness. We need to increase our support programs for folks that are substance abusers, so that we can break some of these generational cycles of homelessness.
All right, Adam.
Federal definition of homeless means that you have been without a home for 365 consecutive days. If you spend a night at a friend's house, if the church lets you in, you are no longer homeless. That is the definition of homeless, and it's unacceptable. And the reason that it's unacceptable is because that's why we don't have enough shelters. We don't have enough shelters because, according to the state, there are about 40,000 homeless people in the state. That's why we aren't getting the dollars that we need as a state to fund the kind of shelters that we need. We know that we could do it if we invested in it. We've got to. First thing we have to do is change the definition so that we are trying to fund the appropriate problem that we live with. That's the first piece. The second piece is actually building more shelters. It's something I've worked on with NSO, but also building permanent shelters, right? So we have a small number of permanent supported housing, which means that you can live there from the moment you go from homeless to forever. We don't have enough spaces like that. We have a lot of spaces where you can stay for 30 days, where you can stay for 60 days, 90 days. If you have gotten to a place where you have been homeless for some extended period of time, it's going to take you a long time to be able to get out of the space. Our social safety network is broken, and we have got to fix it. But the first thing that we have to do is act like we're in a crisis and put all hands on decks. When we needed those kind of things, we have shown an ability to turn up a shelter. If there was a hurricane or a tornado, we know that we can build those temporary structures that provide the shelter that we need. We have not done it because not enough people understand this is an issue. Something I've been working on with NSO at the state level and a whole host of other organizations to ensure that we are actually providing real coverage for people who don't have adequate, safe shelter.
All right, we are in the home stretch. Brandon, your question.
Great, thanks. So this is a student debt question. So Black women bear a disproportionate share of the college debt crisis, which contributes significantly to wealth inequality and family poverty. Should the federal government forgive student debt? If so, what role can and should Congress play in making that happen? What role will you play in making that happen?
Yes, the federal government should absolutely cover all of that. As we talk about it, it's critically important. It is one of the biggest challenges on why young folks haven't been able to start work, is why the credit isn't as good. I graduated from college in 2007. I still have student debt that I'm paying off. It's a huge problem, and the cost of education has grown astronomically. It is the reason that Black folks disproportionately can't start that first business, because we don't have the capital, because we have a higher level of debt. It's something that we should do. And it's something that your Congress members have got to do. It's got to be a federal appropriation, because we've got to pay for it. It's going to be extremely expensive, but it is a worthwhile investment in people and making sure that folks have the opportunity to do the kind of things that we've been talking about. Why is it so expensive for housing? Because people can't afford it, because they got to pay that student loan debt. It's the first time, our generation is the first time ever that it plays into your role as you look at your credit report, as you talk about those kind of things. And so it has had huge implications in people's ability to start a business, to get finance, to do all those other kind of things. I'm all in because it's relevant for me. It's relevant for the next generation. It is something that has been relevant for people in my neighborhood and in our community. As we talk about every other thing that we're doing, people who are in this generation who want to start something are still hobbled with this student debt. The same thing with a number of their parents who are still helping them cover it.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, if you've got one of my cards, there's canceling student loan debt, but I disagree with the senator to my right. You know, frankly, I don't think I've law school loans. I don't think my student loans need to be canceled. Frankly, I hope the senator doesn't want the government to pay his student loans off. You know, I'm a hard worker. My hourly rate is $350 an hour. I can pay my student loans off. The people whose student loans need to be forgiven are some of my former students that went to community college, went right here to WC3. And you know what? It didn't work out. They're working, cutting hair or doing whatever, and now they're saddled with $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in debt. That is crippling them from being able to purchase their own home. So, you know, there may be a key distinction on this issue. I don't think a blanket student loan cancellation for everybody in America is the appropriate answer, but I do believe that folks that really deserve and need to be able to have that fresh opportunity to enter first-time home ownership should have the opportunity to do so.
Great, thank you. We're gonna.
Thank you for that applause. I know it wasn't my mom and dad.
Hold on. We still want to thank. We asked that y'all hold y'all applause again, and we're gonna pass it over to Adam just for a 30-second response.
Yeah, so I'm a captain in the Army. The federal government has a program where if you've done public service for the last 10 years, that they promise that they will cover it. We need to expand those kind of programs. The reason I talk about my student loan debt is because I'm eligible because I've served.
Great, thank you.
No.
We're gonna pass it over to John.
The senator gets the last word.
People get a rebuttal if they're called out by name, and you did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're gonna pass it over to John.
Well, thank you for the question. As someone who has had to leave school to come home and be supportive of my family, I understand when I tried to go back to school, the cost was astronomical. So for me, I just dove right into the workforce. As it relates to canceling student loan debt, you know, I think that's a no-brainer. We should not have, let me rephrase that. Our generation is the first generation to have worse job prospects and earning potential than our parents. We were promised a better life and a better future if we went to college. And for many of my peers, some of whom, I mean, everybody doesn't get to make $350 an hour. You know,
go to law school.
Everybody can't afford it.
That's how it works.
Everyone can't afford it, which is why we're addressing this question.
Why I have law school student loans.
Michael,
please,
we have one speaker at a time. Thank you.
Thanks. You know, everybody doesn't make $350 an hour. So as a United States Congressman, I would absolutely introduce legislation to cancel student loan debt. Everyone keeps passing the buck to President Biden, but as a congressperson, you can introduce legislation to cancel student loan debt. And everyone who's been attacking Biden and folks that I've been on panels with, no one said that. That's something that can be done. We have the majority on the House, and why can't we do it?
Thank you. Sherry?
The same economic strategies that the Democrats used during COVID, the global pandemic, they need to utilize during this urban economic pandemic. Every time we talk about providing services or resources and relief for oppressed communities, we want to ask the question, does it raise or create inflation? Absolutely not. If corporate bailouts have been given and that didn't create inflation, certainly those who are serving in the trenches, like teachers, like firefighters, like police officers in communities that are hardest hit, certainly they should be provided relief. It will not, nor will it increase inflation with those who have jobs with increased wages. And so we have to make sure that we are fighting to defend the same strategy that was used during a global pandemic to address the urban pandemic that has persisted for years.
Great, thank you. Portia?
I am wholeheartedly in favor of canceling all student loan debt. It is absolutely too expensive to go to college at this point, and we are still of the mindset that an education is the best pathway to success. I don't know if I believe that. I think that there are other opportunities that you can have that create success, but canceling student loan debt is imperative. Black women have the highest student loan debt, and we are still paid the least of all other people. So we need to not only increase the wages for Black women, we need to cancel the student loan debt that affects us most of all. The reality of it is this is not just a student issue, this is a parent issue as well. Parents who have gone out on a limb to try and make sure their children are successful by getting a college education. There's no reason why the taxes that I pay could not create free tuition at public colleges and universities for children to go to or young people to go to. And the reality of it is if we are truly a country that says we want to close the wealth gap between minority communities and white Americans, we're going to have to start with canceling loan debt.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start the next question with Portia. This is about money in politics. Is money in politics a problem? If so, what should we do about the influx of dark money from 501c4 organizations and super PACs and local and federal elections?
I'm sure all of you all have been inundated with the millions of dollars that have been spent on commercials in the races that are in this district as well as those around this district. And it's unfortunate because what it means is that we have to respond to those who have more money than others. I have often said and will continue to say there are a number of people around this country who would make good U.S. Congress people. There are people who would make excellent state House representatives and state senators. But the fact of the matter is that campaigns have become so extremely expensive that people can't even choose it as an option, even if all their intention is to serve. The reality of it is that people are in these elections that do not live in this district, that do not have your best interest at heart, who are not asking their congresspeople to go vote with your best interest in heart, but instead are asking to go vote their interests. Their interests will be completely different than your interests living here in the 13th district. So I am against the proliferation of super PAC money that we cannot trace that has infiltrated all campaigns at this point.
Thank you. Sherry?
I'm the only candidate up here that have had to run and fight back and win against the dark money. Running for the legislature in my second and last term because the auto no-fault bill was pushed forward by our mayor and because we said no. He swore at Little Rock Baptist Church that he would get us. And because I served my community with valor, they said not on our watch. And so I was successful all 3 terms in serving until I termed out. Running for the school board, oh my God. A teacher running for the school board had to fight back against over $500 million in dark money in a super PAC, I would venture to say, by our mayor again. And so we were successful because the power of the people. And I'm the only grassroots candidate up here. And so I want to tell those who are watching this by stream and those that are in this room, don't you dare throw in the towel yet. We're the hardest working, we're the most committed, we have the most fight, we're champions for justice, and we're going to continue fighting against the dark money. We may not be on TV, we're not watching TV anyway. We're out talking to
Hold your
people.
applause. Please hold your applause. Please hold your applause. Thank you.
John?
Thank you for the question. You're absolutely not the only grassroots candidate on this panel, but that's for another time. As it relates to money in politics, I'm grateful to have the institutional knowledge and institutional memory to recall when Citizens United passed. Were I to be elected to Congress, I would absolutely vote to codify legislation that would counteract all the dark money that's coming into our elections via the legislation that is, the Supreme Court decision that is Citizens United. Beyond that, like President Biden said in 2015, we should have a standardized pool of funds for every candidate, similar to what they have in France, where everybody gets the same amount of money. You run your race, may the best man win.
Thank you. Michael?
I was going to say this in my closing remarks, but I think this is more appropriate now. I think on the policy issues, everybody on the stage is pretty similar. I think what you should be choosing is 2 things. Who's most likely to return your phone call once representative gets placed in front of their name? And secondly, and separately, who's least likely once you send them to Washington, D.C. to slide in the pocket of a special interest group? Now, my dear friend, Ms. Roberson, wants to eliminate super PACs. I'm not sure if she's going to refuse any money from Emily's List, as she's endorsed by Emily's List. But beyond this, when we talk about the senator to the right of me, $888,000 from a pro-Israel super PAC is being flooded into the race. So the question I ask remains.
Republican PAC too.
Who's least likely to slide into the pocket of a special interest group? Don't look at what people say, but look what they've done. Now, I'll tell you one thing. I refuse to take money from, big oil and big pharmaceuticals. I plan to be in the fight. I'm not receiving $885,000 of outside pro-Israel super PAC money or Emily's List or anything in between. But what I am going to do is I'm going to fight as hard as I can for the people, as I did as a high school English teacher, as I did as a principal, and as I'm doing right now as a civil rights attorney. Thank you.
Portia, you have 30 seconds to rebuttal, as well as you, Adam. So
Cool.
we'll start with Portia.
Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Griffe, they haven't offered any money yet, but if they do, I'll strongly consider taking it because I'm a pro-choice Democratic woman. I feel strongly about a woman's right to choose what she does with her body, and that is the alignment that I have with Emily's List. That is very different from my alignment with organizations that don't meet or aren't something that I believe in. So once again, Emily's List is a bit different because it is aligned with who I am, which is a strong pro-choice Democratic woman.
Adam?
Yeah. I'm grateful for all the folks that want to support me because they know that I'm a strong candidate and because our values are aligned. As we talk about AIPAC, it's an organization that supports the Speaker of the House, the House Majority Leader, and the majority of members that are in leadership in the House and the chamber that I want to serve in. I'm really grateful for that support, and I spend a ton of time doing that because that's what it takes to run and win an effective campaign. Do you want me to just roll into my 2 minutes?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
Cool. As we talk about the mechanics of running a campaign, nobody likes it, right? Like I'm a captain in the Army. Nobody likes to get up early and go run 20 miles. Nobody. But you do it because there is a day where I'm going to be called on to do something. I've done more than 750 hours of call time, which is me on the phone calling people and asking them for money, because that's what it takes to be someone who is a self-funder. That's what it takes to run a professional congressional campaign. And I'm proud that through 2 quarters, I've raised over $900,000, in addition to all the other organizations that, because they recognize the strength, because they recognize how hard we've worked as a team, have decided to invest in me and this race. Should we be having all the dark money and all the super PACs and all those kind of things? No. Would I vote to get rid of it? Absolutely. But that is the reality that we live in today. And so we can complain about systems, or we can get in a position to change them. Because to change these rules, you have to be in power and you have to be in the seat. And so I'm committed to doing the things that the people who win these races are doing. And as we talk about this space, I've lived in this district my entire life. And let's be very real. There is a candidate who's given himself $5 million. As we talk about why there is such a need to spend and raise and do all those things, is to be competitive. And so I'm grateful that I'm competitive.
All right, this is the last question before the closing remarks. And Adam, you will go first. Historical and current banking practices are well documented despite fair lending laws and policies, and despite community reinvestment oversight. There are fewer bank branches in Detroit than in surrounding communities. Black borrowers are denied more often and charged higher fees, and development projects face greater hurdles in Black communities. What more needs to be done to promote racial justice? What about reparations?
I think reparations is critically important. It's something that we should be addressing from top to bottom, and it's not just an issue as a result of slavery, but primarily an issue of the vast level of wealth that was created after World War II with the New Deal, something that disproportionately Black and brown people were not able to take advantage of. It's the definition of redlining. We spent a lot of time today talking about housing, and so much of the value and economics that folks have today and wealth is because of housing that was given to them at incredibly low cost coming out of World War II. As we talk about why there are less financial institutions in the city of Detroit and disproportionately communities of color, particularly in the 13th Congressional District, it's because when they passed the Community Reinvestment Act, it said that you had to lend in the neighborhood where you have branches. So you know what they did? They were like, well, we're gonna close all these branches because we're not lending in these communities. As we talk about how we address those things, it's making companies be accountable, because Black folks spend a significant amount of dollars. It's making sure that the institutions that we work with, that we bank with, are actually banking with us, are having opening spaces. You know, where is the money from the city of Detroit? Where is the county money? Where are those kind of things? And as we do partnerships, it's making sure that we invest in those things. As a state senator, I've been really proud about making sure that the only Black-owned bank in the city of Detroit is getting state dollars, is being a partner and a fiduciary for the programs that we do, and particularly as we talk about the lending programs that we make available to residents. It's something I'm very committed to doing at the federal level.
Michael, your question.
I'm 100% in favor of reparations. I'm not going to use the term Black and brown when it's convenient. I'm talking about reparations for descendants of African slaves, which includes me. When I think about income inequality and what that represents, I think about my grandfather, who I never met. He died before I was born. He served in World War II and was denied the opportunity for an interest-free GI home loan. This is why reparations are important. But I also think you have to really listen to what people have seen and what people have done. You know, being in our community as a teacher and as a principal and as a civil rights lawyer, and I probably sound like a broken record by that, it's important to understand that I've actually been in this community doing the work, we're not talking, when we talk about providing more resources, yeah, we need to better fund SBA programs that include CDFIs and minority depository institutions that the senator mentioned. There's only one minority depository institution in Michigan that's located in Detroit. And we need to incentivize SBA to issue loans and to issue debt to Black businesses, because if we're not incentivizing, it's not going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of atrocities happening in providing access. Reparations, I think, for descendants of African slaves should occur, and you need a fighter to be able to do that. And I believe that I'm best positioned as the fighter who practices in federal courts around the country to be able to make that a reality.
John, your question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Historical and current banking practices are well documented despite fair lending laws and policies and despite community reinvestment oversight. There are fewer bank branches in Detroit than in surrounding communities. Black borrowers are denied more often and charged higher fees, and development projects face greater hurdles in Black communities. What needs to be done to promote racial justice, and what about reparations?
Well, as I already said, I support reparations. I don't just view reparations through the lens of slavery. It's also taking place in present time when we look at the disparity in who gets to participate in the legal marijuana business. As it relates to lending practices, I've also already addressed and will hope to continue to address that, or hope to address that on the federal level with addressing banks and their lending practices. We know that they lend to Black people differently than they do to their white counterparts. We know that business owners are not able to get the same loans that their white counterparts are able to get. So it's very, very important, and part of our role on the federal level and what we use this bully pulpit for is to hold people accountable when they are not doing right by Black and brown citizens.
Thank you, John. Sherry, your question.
Thank you. The conversation around reparations has gone on for years, and certainly just like the organization AIPAC, who's certainly funded one of my opponent's campaign, they asked for you to sign and support a paper that shows that you will continue to call for the money that goes to Israel. And so my question is, will we ask AIPAC to support money to come to the Black community? So that's something that I hope that my opponent will do. But do we bank with the right people? I'm so proud to be supported and endorsed by the Michigan Credit Union League. I've been a member of a credit union for almost 30 years. And so it's important that we put our money in the right places, as well as small community banks. But First Independence is one of our Black banks. How many of us are banking with them? It's not just about calling for a blank check for reparations, but it's also calling these companies that continue to do business in our community, address their policies. I was walking my dog this morning, and one of the guys that worked for Subaru told me, hey, did you know that Subaru gives away 2 cars every year to teachers in the cities that they are in, but they've never given one to teachers in the city of Detroit? That's wrong. And so we got to be willing to call them out on these injustices. Just because you don't have a car lot in the city of Detroit, I know that we got some city of Detroit people who have bought Subarus. That's what we have to do from a policy perspective.
All right, Portia, you have the last word, but Adam, 30 seconds to respond.
I just want to say there's no pledge that had to be signed or some sign off that you were committed to doing something.
Thank you, Adam. Portia, your question.
Thank you. Let's just be simple about this. African Americans built this country for free, and we deserve, if this country is going to talk about true equity in this country, to have reparations. It's been done for other communities, so it's not impossible to do. We've seen it time and time again. We are going to have to figure out ways in which to create generational wealth for African Americans, and part of that is going to be giving us what we are owed. So I am absolutely in favor of reparations for African Americans. I think it's beyond time. We can keep talking about what we're going to do, but we've got to start talking about doing it. We've got to start doing it. As far as banking is concerned, my colleague, my opponent is absolutely right. Small business, small banks, community banks, credit unions, all of those are places where we should be choosing to bank so that we force those to make loans to our own communities. The problem with where we are right now is some of the larger banks will not provide capital for us to start our own businesses, for us to own our own homes. And we have to do that by putting our money where our mouth is and making sure they do the same. So thank you.
All right, that's going to wrap up the questions portion of our forum. Candidates will now take 2 minutes for their closing statements in reverse order of the opening statements. So that means, Portia, you're up first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to be in front of you all this afternoon. I'm Portia Roberson. I'm not running on behalf of anyone else. I am running because I have done the work throughout my entire career. As I mentioned in my opening, I started my career as a public defender. I've been an assistant Wayne County prosecutor. I had the great pleasure of working for President Barack Obama and leading a department in the Department of Justice under Eric Holder. And I came back to Detroit, bringing with me federal resources to help out this city at a time when we desperately needed it. I am running for Congress because I want to expand that opportunity for all of the people in the 13th District, not just the city of Detroit, but from Romulus and Taylor, Southgate and Ecorse, all the way to the Points. We need to make sure, as I have done at Focus Hope, that we put money in the hands of the people who need it the most. And I have distinct advantage of having provided direct services. I know where that money is needed. I know how people are grateful when they get our assistance, and I know how it is to make sure that the people who have come to us for help are treated with the utmost respect, but that they are also gaining a leg up so they don't have to continuously come to us for help. I am Portia Roberson. I'm running for Congress, and I hope I have your vote and your support.
Thank you, Portia. Sherry, you have 2 minutes for closing statements.
I am Sherry Gay-Dgango, the only grassroots candidate up here that is fighting for our community with a proven and committed track record. I'm so proud to see one of my students in the room, and I won't point her out right now. She's running for office as well. That makes me so happy that I've been in the classroom with 6th through 8th graders for more than 8 years, teaching them to always stand up for themselves, giving them the real about who I am and where I come from, and letting them know to never allow anybody to look down on them because they don't come from privilege. It's not easy fighting in the community to stand up for justice, but it's worth it, and the return on investment is unbelievable. I'm running to be your voice, to be a fighter. We don't have a competency issue up here. We have a commitment issue, and I'm the only candidate up here that has a proven track record, that have not gotten paid for the work that I've done, but I've sacrificed myself, my time, my family, my money, and I want to personally thank all of my unpaid volunteers that are here with me today for your commitment for over 7 months to this grassroots campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry. John, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. Before some of the things that were said on this panel, I had a different closing statement. You know, I was going to talk about meeting Ms. Hale over there when I went to Jefferson and Chalmers in the Benetal area, and Ms. Cooley and Romulus. But I think what this district needs is authentic representation. A lot of times when I'm on these panels with the folks up here, they love to talk about my privilege, and that's cute and that's fine. But I'm also, again, the child of an incarcerated parent. And I heard someone up here talk about how they were proud of, you know, closing Ryan Prison. And I had the privilege, when we talk about privilege, to go into that prison with my father, the former congressman, and my mother, and see how the men that were in that prison repaired their lives. And then when my mom went to prison, I understood the hardship that a family faces when you have to figure out how you're going to go see the person that's incarcerated. And so also, we talk about mentioning Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick. There's a piece of legislation right now called HR 5747 that seeks to provide funding, federal funding, to communities around this country to make it easier for families to go see, you know, their incarcerated family member. And so what this district needs, and why I'm running for office, is not only someone with the institutional memory and the institutional knowledge of how to perform the function of that job. We talk about this job, you need relationships, and if I were to be elected, I would go to DC with those. But we also need someone that's going to give an authentic representation. I'm a graduate of DPS. I'm a self-funded campaign. I spent my own money for this campaign, in addition to the support of small donations. We need authentic representation that understands the hardship that members of this community face. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Michael, your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
You know, several folks have talked about and used the word I, you know, and I'm not going to recite my resume to you because that's not what this is about. Who we put in office, this is about you. This is about representing you. And it's my belief that we need more folks like us representing us in Washington. The folks that get up every single day, take their kids to latchkey, work as hard as they can, and get maybe 30 minutes with their kids before bed. Not the ones getting chauffeured around, not the ones that have been in political bubbles, but real folks like us. And that's why I'm running for Congress. I really hope to earn your support. And I'll leave you with this, just for my own edification. Measure the folks that are in this race by the two things. Who's going to call you back once representative gets placed in front of their name? And who's least likely to slide into the pocket of some special interest group once they get into the Washington bubble? Thank you.
Adam, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you for coming out. In this moment, we are seeing record apathy, right? For the last 2 years, Republicans have been trying to take away your right to vote. And I voted no on every single one of those bills, but we have an obligation and a responsibility to turn out the vote. It's going to make a huge difference because for the first time since the 50s, there's a potential that we won't have a black member of Congress. Over the past 7 months, I've been doing everything I possibly could to ensure that that's me. And I will continue to do so. I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I think that my life and my whole career has been about getting me prepared for this moment. I'm a captain in the Army. I went to Cornell. I have a master's from University of Michigan. And for the past 4 years, I've been in the state legislature. Before that, I worked in the nonprofit sector. I've worked in business and done all the things that I think we should be talking about when we talk about who are we sending to Congress. Because this is a space where we really need things delivered. We need folks who have the skills, the talent, and the commitment to a neighborhood. I live 2 blocks from the house I was raised in. My dad was a firefighter. My mom's a social worker. I grew up in a household of people who take care of other people. That's what I've spent my career doing, and I am exceedingly grateful for the opportunity to come before you and ask you for your support. And I'll be back, and I'll keep asking you, and I'll be on your doors, and you'll get calls, and you'll get mail, and you'll see me doing all those kind of things because I know how critically important it is to get out in front of you, to touch you, and to talk about this space. I hope that you vote. I hope that you tell your friends to vote. I hope you get your neighbors to vote because we need every single one of them to do it because we've all been incredibly upset when Republicans try and suppress our vote, when they try and take back the things that we fought so hard for. But we still have too many people who aren't availing themselves of that opportunity. So thank you for your support, but most importantly, thank you for being engaged. Again, my name is Adam Hollier, and I'm running for Congress in the new 13th Congressional District.
Let's give all of these candidates a great big hand. Thank you all so much. This has been your Economic Justice 13th Congressional Candidate Forum. Be sure to vote on Tuesday, August 2nd. We will see you next time. Thank you, everybody.